Hello everybody, today we will be taking a look at the NVIDIA GeForce GTX 780. This is a 3GB frame buffer card. It is going to be running at stock clocks, and as usual we will be taking a look at 3 modern games, which are BF1, Mass Effect Andromeda, and Crysis 3, with Crysis 3 being a bit older, but we will be running at a 4K, so kind of give you more of a modern sense of the game, since 4K is becoming a more standard resolution in my opinion. So anyways, once again, it is at stock clocks, and we'll be going through those 3 games. I hope you guys enjoy, and let's go ahead and start with the first game. Starting off with BF1, we have a very playable FPS, above 30 with 4K. You guys will notice some stuttering. This will be hopefully the last video that will have that stuttering. If I can't fix this issue, I'm probably going to go and put some pellets into my SSD shortly. But overall, the game was highly playable at a 4K setting. You definitely are slightly limited by the 3GB frame buffer, so knocking up the texture resolution any higher will basically plummet your frame rate, but it's pretty decent as a 4K card, and it is also at stock clocks. If you do overclock it, you're probably going to get much higher FPS as well. This card, I've honestly been able to overclock about 50%, so I might do a future video with that overclock. And moving on to 1080p, we have 68 frame average. This is amazing. This is probably what everyone's trying to go for, is at least above 60. If you're running at a higher hertz monitor, you know, anything above 60 is going to be great for you, but 60 is the general target I'm quite sure most people go for. It is an extremely smooth resolution, and it is a great way to play. So if you still have this card, yes, running BF1 at 1080p at medium is extremely smooth. Now moving on, I did also include a 24-player match. I didn't go with 64 players because you do need a slightly better CPU, or you will have a decent frame drop, but it was overall quite playable as well, with a very minimal drop. And now moving on to a much more recent game, we have Mass Effect Andromeda. At 1080p, we were above 60 almost consistently. We actually were above 60 consistently, 65. The FPS averaged about 81. It was highly playable. If you're curious on how this was benchmarked, this was simply me running around in a loop on this map, which I'm sure my teammates hopefully didn't mind. And as you'll notice, I will not put a 4K score up because 4K was not very playable, and there's not much of a reason to really include it. I'm guessing that's because of the 3GB frame buffer. If you also overclock, that might help alleviate that issue, but it was not exactly very playable. But I will say that the game is, surprisingly, for a 4-year-old card, even though it is a very high-end one for 4 years, it's still doing some pretty amazing things. When we drop down to 720p, in case you have a higher resolution monitor, and you're basically, you care more about frames and you care about your resolution, for instance, then I threw this in right here, and the FPS was above 90, which was actually pretty great. It wasn't that much of a huge increase. I'm wondering if that's because of my CPU. I am only using a standard CPU to test this out. If you do have a more modern CPU, you're probably going to get slightly higher frames as well when it comes to lower resolutions. But overall, as you can see, you can have a older mid-range CPU with a older high-end GPU and still play this game very well. So there you go, an extremely modern game running extremely well on this GPU. And now moving on to our last game, we have Crysis 3, which, benchmarking at 4K, gave us a not exactly what I would call perfectly good smooth FPS, but it is a playable FPS nonetheless. You could overclock to alleviate this as well, but in general, this card won't really handle the game that great when it comes to 4K. You can also drop down the settings a little bit and mess around with a few other things that might help you get better FPS. I was testing this out at high, which I believe is like somewhere around medium-ish in Crysis, if I remember right. I think it was like high, very high, something else. I'm not sure if that's Crysis 2 or this game. But overall, it was somewhat playable. This was benchmarked by using the first map and running it in a perfect loop, almost the best a human possibly could, I guess. But that was my method of benchmarking, if you're curious. And now moving on down to 1080p, we have a massive FPS boost, which I'm guessing is also because of the frame buffer and not being seated as much. So we have 84 frames, very playable, very smooth. And in general, I would say with this score right here, the card, is still absolutely outstanding when it comes to modern games. You just have to drop down a few settings. You might drop down the resolution just a tiny teensy bit. If you're looking at 4K, you might have to play some older games or drop down the settings heavily. But overall, if you still have it, great card. No need to upgrade unless you're crazy about 4K or some high hertz monitors. But anyways, I hope you guys liked the video. Go ahead and like it and subscribe if you like the content. Anyways, see you later.